Yeah, so can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How was Chicago? How was
So,
the experience?
so yeah, I'm glad you asked, Natalia. So Alvelis also was there, which is funny. So we had the AIA conference last week in Chicago. It was from Tuesday, I believe, all the way to Saturday. I got there on Wednesday, and I have been before to AIA. In fact, look, I have my stuff with me. But I had never been to Chicago. So going to Chicago alone was a great experience because I have read about Mies Rohe, about the fire that happened in Chicago, which triggered a lot of the building codes that we know today. I learned so much about, at school we learned with, Mies, Franklin Wright, all of those guys that projects in Chicago. The canal, which was a big, undertake of infrastructure, right? And I learned that actually the ones that made the canal for Chicago, that river, actually went to the Panama Canal to work afterwards. So that was really cool. So that experience alone is like unmatched. And I think I have to go back. I have to really go back and really walk through the river walk and really digest the city. When it comes to the AIA part, I had the first time I went was in 2019 in Las Vegas. And there was a different Darwin back then, right? It's not like just in the financial aspect of things. And the appearance, I look a lot better now. But it was like a baby Darwin, right? So back then, I wasn't as critical about certain things. I was just like enjoying everything. And getting to know new people. Now this time around, I'm actually already kind of known. People do know me, and I know a lot of people now. So it felt like going back to seeing people I already know and connecting from another point of view. So that was good. Reconnecting ever since the pandemic in person, that was really cool too. But I wasn't looking at it from even like, I just recently licensed architect because I was just like a recent architect, right? So now I was looking at it from an established architect, and I wasn't really into looking at the expo and checking all the new products. I was more into like it's strengthening the connections I already had created with people. NCARB, I went to NCARB and spoke with them. I know Nick. I know a lot of people there. I was telling them about the things that we're doing for the AREs and how I have moved to the dark side of helping helping people become architects, instead of being part of NCARB and developing exam content and things like that. Um, so that was cool. Like I like that a lot, and seeing the pass of time and how it has affected people. That was cool. So, but my schedule was pretty much like back to back too, so I couldn't really mingle too much. I got there on Wednesday. I just really went to the conference to get my badges because most of the day that I was going to spend there was going to be on Thursday. So on Wednesday, I had a small firm exchange party that we had. There wasn't music though, so I don't want to be negative. But if there's no music, there's no party. They had only two of the components. They had food and drinks. So we need food, drink, music, and great people. Yeah, they also had great people. So that was cool. And so that was a good part to reconnect with a lot of the small firm exchange board members and representative. Then on Wednesday it was really literally back to back. So I had a firm audit. They had an app which I didn't know. I've always used the app even before, but I didn't know how good it was. It literally was like a GPS. You could find yourself within the location and where you are within the different locations, which was really helpful. But I learned it after I had been walking around for 20 minutes trying to find my session. So that was like, oh, okay. So but the first one was flexible, so I could come in and it was 15 minutes on a one-on-one with somebody. So that was cool. Then the next one was a session on small projects awards. So it was like they were giving awards to different small projects. I was very focused on small firms' needs. So most of my stuff was like session number one, marketing for architects, right? For small firm architects. Session number two was small firm awards and how to apply, how much, what's the cost associated with it, who won, why did they win, things like that. Then I had my tour of the river. So I had to immediately rush into the river, right? And then and I guess that was Friday. So I got there on Thursday actually. So yeah, that was Friday. And then rushing all the way back to see Barack Obama, of course, from the tour. So I had to get a lift. The lift was lost. So I was probably like 30 minutes late to Barack Obama. But and we weren't supposed to take pictures, we weren't supposed to take videos, you know, and things like that. So and until that point, I still hadn't seen our bellies. I really hadn't seen our bellies, not at all. We hadn't connected. We connected. Was it that same night, our bellies? No, it was on Saturday, right?
It was Saturday night, I think it was.
Saturday
Yeah.
night, I finally encountered with her the young architects like meetup that they had, like a party at a rooftop. Really cool rooftop, by the way. They didn't take any pictures at the rooftop, but then we took pictures with other people. And I don't know how much you know about the young architect, but they're like a prep group for the AREs. But they're a little more than just a prep group. They're like advocating for a new generation of young architects. Like, that's kind of how they put it to me. So I had already heard of Mike Risica. I've been a supporter and a hater at the same time. Full disclosure, because there's a lot of negativity the way that he expresses himself, but that's the way he is. The way he did a review of the convention too, of the conference, and there were a lot of negativity into what he said. Like he's he doesn't think that the conferences are gonna really happen for the next 5 years, maybe. That feels like people weren't really as eager to be there. Black Spectacle wasn't there, which is our test prep, and it's the AIA actually endorsed AIA prep, and they are based out of Chicago. So it's like, what? So but I think that there's more to it. So the way I see it as a celebration of architecture. It's like or all-star game. We all get together, for like, there's car conventions, there is music conventions, there is comic club conventions. So this is like the conference on us. And it's the first one that happened in person ever since the pandemic. So probably some people weren't comfortable. So that probably was why the attendance wasn't so good. But I think the attendance was great. Every session I went to was filled. So I can only speak for myself on that. Abelis, what was your experience?
So it was my first conference, so I don't have anything to refer it into regard to another. One thing that I do have to say, I think for being an architecture convention, it didn't feel that there were a lot of new architects. There was a lot of like principals, like in most of the workshops that I went, most of the people that were there were people have been in the industry for a while. So that meaning that probably the AIA hasn't tried to tap into the, schools, new graduates and things like that, which I found it weird. But I don't know if that's something that they want just to be, licensed architects on the conference.
Yeah, you mentioned that the cost for non-licensed architects and non AIA members was really high. So I think you mentioned that
I almost paid $700 only for the entry.
So it looks like it's not being like accessible for a diverse group of people, right? Like
exactly,
like all inclusive. Like what we want everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I noticed that, and also even in the topics for the workshops, like it didn't at least it should have something about licensing. There weren't anything about licensing on another, and I went like several times to the list of workshops that they had available. They weren't anything about my idea was like, okay, this is going to be amazing for even students in architecture school. It weren't anything for architecture school. There was like nothing at all. They have very interesting topics. I'm not saying they didn't have any. They have over 200 workshops and lectures and things. But it was mostly focused in the principle of an office. Like if you see the levels of an office, it was mainly focused on the principles of the higher ranks of an office. That's my take on it. I don't know. I'm not an architect yet, so maybe and I'm an architect, would say a different thing.
Yeah, I guess you have to think about who is able to go to these types of events, right? And so principals at some point become less of an actual practicing architect and more of a sort of face
Business
and
person.
business development. Well, speaking for myself, like I barely draw, right? Almost anything. So I'm more into the outreach side of the practice. Like that's really my core mission, like to the outreach and showcase diversity within the business in the field. So so I guess that's what it is. They have more time. There were a couple. I saw some familiar faces from CBT architects. One of them is actually, she's still not licensed, but I pushed her and she's gonna get going. So in fact, I should ask her for her email so I can add her to this, because she hadn't started anything. She hasn't started. She's actually Dominican
feel-
too, Abel. But yeah.
I feel like I saw on the conference there was two type of people, because I went to the first time, like a first time in the conference event. They did one like that at the beginning. Pretty much you could like from there you can see like all of them were like people, not to be offended, but most like older people. There weren't any student. Like I could see that thing they put a table of students. There were like 8, which we're talking about the architecture conference. So this is not only for architects, it could be like architect to be. And I know that the students, they had a very good discount actually. I'm a recent grad, so I had to pay like $600 to enter, but I think the students were like $100 or $200, which was,
So you're saying
better
that
price.
they made it accessible for students, but the
But it
path
wasn't
between
like-
being a student and being an architect, those in between were still very high.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, even they did it accessible, but you say you have the part that you can give in a cheaper entry, but you didn't do enough. Imagine you are a student, you have a cheaper price, but you see what they're gonna do in the conference. Nothing is meant to be for students. They didn't even have they didn't have workshops even for students or anything for students. Even they have a lounge. They had a lounge for first timers, and everyone that was in the first timer lounge were like, principals. Literally, like I asked people, and they were principals on their office. Like principals, they have more time to go in a Thursday on a conference. But I mean, for me, it's like I've been to an architecture conference in my country, and they're like big, like every college has things. They even had the alumni. I think the last night, Darwin, they had like the alumni meeting for a couple of colleges like Harvard, MIT, and all that stuff. And like there wasn't anything about like students, new architects, young, and even like new firm owners. They did have a couple of lectures about new firms, but I didn't saw that many. But there were a lot of people. I have to admit that there wasn't like most of the workshops that I went, they weren't empty. But they were, like,
yeah. I was gonna say about that, because whenever anybody says that it wasn't well attended, I only had to look at the when Barack Obama was talking, the last keynote, and you can there was no seats. People were standing at the back. So
at the back,
so if it wasn't well attended, then there would have been a lot of empty seats, but it was really well attended. So I think this is really good feedback and really good stuff. By the way,
they need to work in diversity. Definitely.
They have to. It's something that they all want to talk about. They all want to mention, but they don't even know how, right? So we got to show them the way too. So we got to, like, that's why I'm part of the Small Firm Exchange. That's why I'm part of the Young Architect Group. That's why I'm trying to be involved, because you can't, they're
also there weren't a lot of women. They weren't. I don't feel like if you do, I wish they could do like on a survey of how many people attending, how many women compared to men. And I mean, the industry itself, there's more women than men, but there's more men than women. But I was surprised. I was like, oh my God, this is what they mean when they say architecture is a white men dominated field. Like it was packed of the stereotype architect.
Yeah.
Which was like, it was like, what? Like I never seen it. Like, you always hear that for me. I always hear that comment, but I'm like, you go to firms and there was just a lot of women in big charges. And then in the conference, like, okay, I know what they mean now.
Yeah, so it gets, can get probably complicated into the barriers of why women wouldn't go even if they could, like kids or whatever, or duties and responsibilities. So there may be a lot of different things,
aspects to it. Yeah.
But you went there for the first time, and I'm thinking you're probably gonna go to San Francisco too, and I think Natalia's gonna try to go to next year San Francisco.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
next
now
time
I know.
we're going to be part of the party, and we're gonna be the cool ones. I would say one thing though, like, we have to show them the way. We have to go there, and we have to conquer the world ourselves by our own means, you know, and we could do it, you know, and show other people that this career can be very cool, you know, like I'm not trying to be a stereotype type of architect. Like I even was wearing like Jordan sneakers, you know, at some point. I'm like, I gotta be cool. I gotta be myself, and I
Mhm.
gotta show people that they can be themselves with this profession. So overall, if you measure success, you know, I would say coming back out of the pandemic, this is a success. We made it. You put it all together. It was great. It had a good turnout. Great. The problems on diversity and pipeline is an ongoing problem that's going to likely take many years to be resolved, and that's why we're here, and we're gonna get there. So you know, the next time Albel is gonna be a licensed architect, and Natalia might be halfway through or maybe done too. So that will be pretty cool.